Recording in progress.
Okay, this is just a test to hear if it's coming out of the meeting room.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, do the folks in the Zoom hear us? And can you unmute one of your mics and just so that we can hear you?
Okay, Gary.
Test, 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 test. Okay, do you guys hear us in the Zoom?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
Gary, can you hear David?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You sound as if you're a little underwater, David.
Okay. Not sure what to do about that.
What do we do about that? I don't think that's. Okay, can you share your screen, David?
I will try it right now. Is that working?
Yes, it does. We see you really well. Now,
Okay, great.
wait a minute.
No, I think what's happening is...
Yeah, but how does, Gary, can you see that screen?
No, but why isn't it on this screen?
Well, that is currently to that right now. We're not done with that yet. Do you want me to...
Then remember, you gotta ask Keith so it's not coming up in the cameras.
No, it was much further out last time with that. But next month we'll have
Hi.
interchangeable on both of these.
Hi.
Okay, so then we push this one back, so.
It went okay, but I'm wearing a heart rate monitor attached to me for the next week. 24/7. And if I have an incident, then I push a button and have a chart that I have to fill out. And after a week, I take it off and mail it back.
What do you think?
Yeah. It will after it's read. In other words, it's not on the internet. It's internal. I have a heart rate monitor that goes to my phone. That's not a heart rate monitor. Blood pressure monitor. goes to my phone. That, no, it's not on the internet, it's just internal. Yep. Thanks for calling.
Right, so we're just working on what the screen is gonna look like. So my suggestion is here.
No.
That way you can see them, you can see the screen. Alright, let me introduce,
Welcome, everybody, to the Rye Town Council meeting of April 18th, 2024. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tommy? I have to remember?
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make every decision fair-minded and in the best interest for all its residents. Amen.
Debbie, please call the roll.
The clerk?
Oh, I'm sorry. That was the other day on the commission meeting. Hope, please call the roll.
Gladly. Councilperson Pamela Jaffe. I'm here. Councilperson Jill Axelrod.
Here.
Councilperson Thomas Nardi.
Here.
Councilperson Randy Sellier is absent. And Supervisor Gary Zuckerman.
Present. Randy is out of the country and will not be attending unless he gets on Zoom midnight his time. Our first item, of course, is adopting the minutes of March 12th, 2024. May I have unless there are objections or corrections, may I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved. Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. None opposed?
None
First regular item is a presentation of the draft report of the study conducted by at the Historic American Cemetery by Heritage Consultants, and David Leslie is on Zoom. Hi, David.
Hello.
You may begin at your leisure.
Okay, thanks. I'm just gonna, I have a quick question before I start. Can you see my mouse cursor as I move it?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we submitted our draft report earlier this week, and I'm going to just sort of briefly go through what we did during that survey and what some of our findings were so that we can discuss them. So as you mentioned, this was a survey that was done at the Historic African American Cemetery. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. This work was, of course, supported by a National Park Service African American Civil Rights Grant Program. This included a lot of different facets of work that we did. One was a full-scale documentation and mapping survey of the cemetery. So by that I mean a hand-drawn map of all aspects of the cemetery that we could see at the surface, as well as documenting every headstone, footstone, or any cemetery elements. We also conducted a low-flying unmanned aerial vehicle or drone survey of the cemetery to create a three-dimensional reconstruction of the cemetery. We also conducted three-dimensional photography of each headstone too. And then finally, we conducted a ground-penetrating radar survey of the cemetery to document all marked and unmarked burials within the cemetery. So just a brief history of the cemetery. The African American Cemetery was established as a burying ground in 1860. However, the oldest burials date to 1840. We can see here on a historic Beers map from 1867 where the cemetery is depicted north of the then railroad line. This is, of course, where I-95 is today as well. So we can see where it's depicted there on this map. In the course of this investigation, we discovered a WPA Works Progress Administration era map of veterans who were interred in the cemetery in 1939 and 1940. While this map only depicts the headstone and burial locations of veterans, it also depicts the plat and boundaries of those different markers or parcels within the cemetery. So it's a really important map because it helps ground what people knew about the cemetery in the early to mid 20th century. And so this has been really instrumental for us to use as we compare our results from the documentation mapping and ground radar survey with this earlier map as well. So I just wanted to give everyone sort of an overview of what this documentation survey looked like. This is an example of the blank forms that we documented for every headstone. So you can see there are a number of different criteria And,
No, it has nothing to do with it.
It's his sign.
Unfortunately,
He has a noise canceling mic on his laptop.
yeah.
Mike's stepping away.
Pardon?
Yeah. David,
Yeah.
we are missing almost all of your words. Can you locate your voice very close to your microphone, please?
I will do that. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna just get rid of my video if I'm right. Just a second. Here we go. Let me stop my video. Okay, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, would you like me to go back?
Probably, because we've missed almost all of it.
I'll start at the beginning. Okay, so we are talking about the recently completed survey of the African cemetery. This was, of course, supported by the National Park Service African American Civil Rights Grant Program. This included a documentation and mapping survey of the cemetery. So this included hand-drawn mapping, as well as complete documentation of every headstone within the cemetery. We also conducted a low-flying, unmanned, or uncrewed aerial vehicle or drone survey of the cemetery to fully document the cemetery in 3 dimensions and create a highly accurate map of the cemetery as the conditions exist today. We then conducted 3-dimensional photography of each headstone, and we finally conducted a ground-penetrating radar survey of the entire cemetery so that we could document all marked and unmarked burials within the cemetery using these geophysical methods. The burying ground itself was established in 1860. However, the oldest burials date back to 1840. This is an 1867 Beers map depicting the cemetery. It's the earliest map that we have found that depicts the location of the cemetery. You can see that it's north of the New Haven railroad line, which is where I-95 is today. We also, through the course of this work, found a WPA or Works Progress Administration era map of the cemetery, which was made in 1939 and 1940. This only documents veterans' graves locations within the cemetery. However, it also displays the plat or family marker locations for where burials were. And so it's been very instrumental for us to compare this with our geophysical results as well. This is an example of the grave marker data form that we filled out for every headstone. So you can see that there's a lot of information that we record for each headstone. This includes drawing the marker shape, notes on the marker's condition, the material, if it's been repaired, what the inscriptions are. We then collated all this information into a spreadsheet and provided that in the report as well. This is an example of what the data looks like when we filled it out. This is our arbitrary number, headstone number 3. So you can see here that there is a cross on top of a stone. An inscription of mother was found to be on the stone. It was raised. However, the M has started to fade dramatically. And so there's a number of information that we record for each headstone. We documented 196 stones within the cemetery, including 155 headstones, 9 footstones, stones that are located at the foot of a burial, and then 32 plat markers or boundary markers within the cemetery. This is the hand-drawn map that we created at the end of our work. So this shows every headstone that we gave an arbitrary number to, where it is located. This is a map that was drawn with a high degree of accuracy. You'll also note the stone walls surrounding the cemetery, the condition of that stone wall as it starts to deteriorate in some areas, where the modern trees are, as well as what I think is really important, a number of sort of person-sized depressions that we found within the cemetery, some associated with headstones, some that were not. So we recorded these locations as well. Again, with this mapping survey, the location of the road. We also, in addition to drawing all of these elements on this map, we recorded everything with highly accurate GPS coordinates. So we used what's called an inlet reach RTK GPS that uses an in-trip correction. It basically means that our GPS points are accurate to the centimeter. And so everything that we saw on the previous map has been recorded spatially as well. And this is just an example of 2 of the grids that we arbitrarily created for the cemetery. You can see the stone wall boundary as well as those other individual cemetery elements. The low-flying UAV survey is pictured here. So we see what a drone looks like, how we fly it, the model of the cemetery as if you were at a bird's eye view at about a 45-degree angle above it, as well as the bottom picture shows where each individual photo was taken from. So some were taken from the air, not very high. Others were taken very low to the ground, only 6 to 8 feet above the ground, to help fill in sort of the edges of the cemetery to fully recreate what the cemetery looks like. This, in turn, looks like this. When we georectify, that's just a term for taking that map of the cemetery and putting it where it belongs in space on top of other satellite images. So now we have a highly accurate map, not only that was hand-drawn, but one that is an ortho image of the cemetery as well. We also, as I mentioned, did individual three-dimensional photography of each headstone. This is arbitrarily headstone number 66. It is the headstone for Rufus Smith, who died June 8, 1866, and was aged 23 years when he died. That's a snip or a snapshot of the three-dimensional headstone to the left. To the right, we can see where those individual pictures are that we took to build that model. And if we move on to the next, I'll be able to rotate the model and you'll be able to see it. So this is with texture of it, but we can also remove the texture to help us really look at the inscriptions as well. So that's what this is no texture has been added to it. And I'm just going to rotate it here. And the model is turning to show you what it looks like in 3 dimensions. We have a model for every headstone. So in the report we have prepared, we showed just an image of these, but these all exist as computer models that we can provide on a hard drive to the town so that you all have every model reconstructed in 3 dimensions for the cemetery. Finally, the last thing that we did was a ground penetrating radar survey of the entire cemetery. Ground penetrating radar is an active remote sensing technique where radar leaves an antenna, as you can see in this picture here, goes into the ground. Based on the soil layers or the things that are buried in the ground, that signal either bounces off and returns to the antenna, or it travels through those layers, continuing on. So this is just a hypothetical example of things that might be buried in the ground that would provide good resistance to the radar, that allow us to sort of remotely detect where they are. So these are a number of different scenarios that might be encountered in a GPR survey. And you can see that a buried stone foundation for, say, a house on the left provides a very strong response, as does a coffin, as do grave shaft walls of the cemetery, because they're cutting through the normal layered earth that we can see. And that layered earth to the right, those 3 or 4 different layers of earth, provide relatively weak reflections. The tree roots on the right also provide some strong reflections. That's something that we documented during our GPR survey as well, is the location of all of the tree roots. What does this look like when we look at cemeteries? So again, on top, we can see what it looks like as the GPR machine moves across the surface. The profiles below show you what this actually looks like as you are collecting the data. So as the machine moves closer to a 3-dimensional object such as a coffin, we start to get some of these tails that are ghost targets here with my cursor that you can see coming down at like a 45 to 60 degree angle until we get over top of it, and then it's very highly reflective, where all of a sudden it's very dark, black, white, white again, very bright reflectance. That's when the machine is on top of an object that provides very high reflectance features such as a coffin, and then as you move beyond it, we're getting these ghost targets again. So this is just to give you an example of what we as geophysical specialists look for when we do this GPR survey, so that we can detect what a coffin is, what it looks like, and where they are. This is an ideal scenario. They don't always look like this, but we'll go through some of what our results were. So we subdivided the cemetery into 4 separate GPR grids to conduct the survey to fully encapsulate the entire cemetery. This included 768 individual transects. So all of these are areas where we're moving back and forth across the landscape. Places where we stopped are where there were either trees or obstructions. We moved the machine to the other side, continue the transect. We can see Cole Peterson and Fiona Jones here conducting the survey. In total, there were 768 individual transects that we collected for the entire cemetery. This is an example of what those maps look like in 3 dimensions. So we're looking at a what's called an amplitude map. So taking those individual profiles that we saw 2 or 3 slides ago in the example and looking at those across space. This is at approximately 70 to 80 centimeters, so about 2.5 feet below the ground. There are a number of burials that are visible here, but the ones that are clearest are these probably brick or concrete vaults here and here, as well as here, that are incredibly highly reflective. There are some other ones. This is a burial, that's a burial. Those are harder to see, but I'll show you examples of what those look like. And this is that same image, but we've annotated it with where we believe the graves are. Throughout the report, we make a distinction of 3 different types of geophysical signatures. One is marked burials, so burials where we saw good geophysical evidence as well as a headstone. Then probable unmarked burials, which is where we have no headstone, but the geophysical evidence is good to excellent. So it is a very good signature. We are quite confident that it is a coffin, it's the right dimensions, it provides a good reflectance, as well as potential unmarked burials. These are potential burials where we are less sure, but conservatively we've estimated that it is most likely a burial. Again, there is no headstone associated with it, and you can see there is a range of both unmarked, probable, and potential unmarked burials that were found in grids 1 and 2, just at this level, this 10 centimeter or 4-inch level within the cemetery. Again, this is what that looks like, not in that plan view or 3-dimension map, but instead in a profile of it. So this is, if you look at my cursor here, where the 7.5 meter mark is here, moving this direction to the right, is really the beginning of this arrow moving this direction. So there is a marked burial as well as 2 unmarked burials on either side of it, as well as shallow bedrock throughout the cemetery. This was something consistently that we found between about 1.5 meters to 2 meters in depth. So that's 5 feet to 7 feet in depth. We found bedrock, as well as these faint reflectances that are still relative. We're still relatively certain that these are coffins, and then highly reflective ones like this one, which is a really clear marked burial. Again, probably a brick or concrete vault of some kind, or just an incredibly well-preserved wooden coffin. The final results of the GPR survey and the annotations that we found are shown here. So we can see, one, the road that exists within the cemetery that's on that WPA era map, but it's not clear throughout the entire cemetery where that is. That's clear here, as well as the marked, unmarked burials, probable and potential unmarked burials, as well as burials that are associated with those depressions that we found when we did the documentation survey. So that's another line of evidence that we were using where these grave slumps are. So those depressions are associated probably with coffins that have decomposed over time and the soil settles. It could be that the coffins have decomposed, or it could be that people in some instances were buried without coffins too. In any case, these are areas where there's good geophysical evidence as well as the depression, and in some cases a headstone as well to mark the location. So we feel very confident about those as burials. This is grids 3 and 4, again showing that same criteria of the 5 different types of burials we identified via GPR methods. And then finally, these are the final results of the survey. There were 281 total graves that we found. Of these, there were 121 burials with headstones and really excellent GPR evidence. There were 66 probable unmarked burials. So these are very good geophysical evidence, but no headstone. 48 potential unmarked burials where the evidence was not as great with the GPR. And again, there was no headstone. There were 34 headstones, but no GPR or grave slump. And then there were 12 grave slumps, but no headstone or GPR. And that's how we arrived at the estimate of 281 total graves. I should mention that historic accounts have varied in the past as to how many people were buried here, between about 250 to 300. So we feel that this estimate that we've come up with 281, is somewhat conservative, with the potential unmarked burials, as well as the 34 headstones with no GPR or grave slump. However, it does seem to accord with the historic evidence that exists. And that's just a brief overview of the work that we did. So I'd love to hear any questions that anybody has about the work.
So anybody? David, that is a very, very complete report. How many pages is the full written report?
Over 800, I'm not sure.
I just wanted to get that on the record. I knew that. Now, how much of this work was done with artificial intelligence, if any?
None.
None. So this is all grunt work.
Yeah, I mean, the computer does do some stitching of the data, but we created all the figures. We identified every burial, and so on and so on.
So just go over, when we go to that cemetery, normally, how many graves would we see?
There are 155 marked headstones.
Okay, so the difference between 155 marked headstones, you found more than 100 additional graves.
Yeah, I think it's 126 additional graves.
All right. So the next question obviously is, okay, we have this wonderful report, which is certainly part of the history of the town of Rye, certainly part of the history of the African-American people who had lived and continue to live here. What will be our next steps? What would you recommend? Because obviously this is only part of the history. We have many graves that are left to be found, or even though we found them, that's the wrong word. There are many graves that are left to be marked, history to be uncovered as to who these people may have been. What would be your suggestion?
Sure. So I have a couple of suggestions. I think that one of the most important things that can happen is to create a preservation and planning document for the cemetery. So something where you use the elements in the report to create a long-term plan for the preservation and upkeep of the cemetery, but also to mark out the locations that we have identified with even temporary identifications, so that other people who visit their ancestors can know of the locations, but also to simply understand where those are in space when you are in the cemetery, thinking of the planning of it as well. Some of them are under the road, and so that, I don't believe that there's a lot of cars that move through there, but that's something to think about as to, where cars should be, right, with that weight coming down. And I think that a planning document provides you the right way to think about this resource, to plan for the future as well. And then, of course, moving beyond temporary markings, you may want to think about more permanent ways to mark those unmarked burials today.
Is there anything in your research that indicated any kind of methodology that we could use to possibly find out who might be buried in these graves that are unmarked?
Yeah, I think one thing that could happen, so the WPA era map exists at Westchester County. those maps generally were created with copious notes as well. So we were not able to find that map yet, but it exists in the archives, and the notes from the map makers might exist as well, and that's a good place to start. Those surveys were generally very thorough. Beyond that, it will be difficult to determine who some of these people are without any other sort of like really invasive testing of exhumation or DNA, and even that is not a foolproof way to identify people. And so I think that it may be the least invasive way to, I mean, this has to be done in conjunction with descendant communities as well, but to work with the Friends organization to figure out a way to commemorate and preserve these people's memories through markings of some kind.
I don't think that anybody has an idea to perform any kind of exhumation.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
You know, that,
Yeah.
you know, there's no thought of possibly desecrating any graves, especially
sure.
when we don't
I
know who's
understand.
buried there.
Yeah.
You know, but historically, you know, these people were buried by somebody, and the question is, how do we find those somebodies?
Sure.
You know, and obviously any guidance you could give us would be wonderful. We'd be happy to work with you in the future. And of course, I'm sorry Dave Thomas isn't here tonight to see this presentation. I'm sure he'll be able to see it, you know, replaying this meeting. But I think that, you know, this is just the first step.
Sure.
Because we're, you know, this is, as I said earlier, part of our history. And as much as we can find out, we need to find out. So,
Definitely.
Debbie?
I have a question, David. Can you share with us examples of other historic cemeteries and what method of commemorating the unmarked graves have been implemented?
Yeah, there's a number of different ones that I've seen. In some cases, it's using crosses to mark where they are, of differing types. I know that in some cases, people have put up, or organizations have put up temporary PVC or wooden crosses until they can build other stone monuments as well, ones that are more permanent. And that's something that is probably one of the cases here. A number of graves in the past were organic, so they were made from wood, and then those simply deteriorate over time, and that is, I think, what probably many of these headstones were, and that's true in a number of cemeteries across the region, not only here. There is the Connecticut Gravestone Network, a very well-developed organization for the preservation of cemeteries in New England, does have some best practices for these types of situations, so we could look there. And I think that the best thing to do is to think about these during the creation of a preservation and planning document for the cemetery.
I think we'll definitely do that. And we'll work with the Friends of the African American Cemetery to accomplish that. And of course, anybody watching this meeting is welcome to volunteer to serve in that capacity and help.
David, thank you very much.
Oh, sure. Thanks. We were
Any other
very
questions?
happy to do the survey.
I think the other thing I am looking forward to doing is working with you to make sure that we are able to link our website to your study and the three-dimensional images that you've created of the cemetery and of the gravestone, so that it's there for other research and observation.
Yeah, and that's so definitely. It will be a very data-heavy model, so we'll need to think about the best ways to host those. But it is possible. And at this conference that I'm at, there's a number of people who are doing those things too. So I've been trying to speak with lots of people about the ways they're hosting that down too.
That's it. Any questions from the council? Anybody? Anybody from the audience have any questions of David? No? All right, David, thank you very much for that very excellent presentation. Very much appreciated.
Sure. Thanks very much. It was a fantastic job and we were happy to do it.
Thank you. Thank you, and good night.
Okay, bye.
Our next item is a report from Brian Sullivan regarding our community cleanup. You don't have to, you could stay for the rest of the meeting. We have good stuff.
Isn't it the fourth one?
It's the fourth one. No, that's spring cleanup, yes.
You're very welcome. Thanks for coming by. You're always welcome. Don't be a stranger.
So, hello everybody. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm happy to say that our April 13th cleanup was a great success. You know, we focused on 4 sites this time around. The village of Rybrook had to sit out. Their plants were not delivered in time for the 13th, so they'll be doing something this weekend, I believe. But so we focused on 4 sites. So downtown Portchester, the Bird Homestead and Conservancy in the city of Rye, right here at Crawford Park for the town of Rye, and along the Mamaroneck River in Ryeneck. So we had 17 sponsor organizations, and we had 78 volunteers show up for the events across our 4 sites, which I regard as, pretty big success. And across our 4 sites, we collected over 50 bags of garbage, and in Portchester we found 4 tires, which I thought was pretty fun. So we've got a breakdown of each of our sites. Portchester, we had the most volunteers with 28. We picked up 25 bags of garbage, including our 4 tires. We focused downtown, pretty much a 15-block area. And I just want to say thank you again to the Capitol Theater and the Colony Grill for supporting and sponsoring us. The City of Rye had one less volunteer for 27, but they did have a dog show up, so I guess they tied us. So they were mostly, cleaning up dead leaves and such from the fall and winter. They also planted flowers. I don't have any photos of that here, but yeah, it was a great success. Tracy Storrow was our captain, and Aaron Griffiths with the Bird Homestead was a co-captain. And they were both very happy, saw great success there. Here in the town of Rye at the Crawford Park fields outside, there were 11 volunteers, and that includes some of the council people and supervisors sitting in front of us. So they cleaned up a large amount of invasive vines, and thank you to Debbie for running the site. Thank you to Vic and his team for helping not only here, but with all of us getting our supplies in order ahead of time. And then over in Ryeneck, there were 12 volunteers. They picked up at least 6 bags of garbage from along the river, and that was run by Christy Young. So the biggest successes were, the sheer number of volunteers that we got this year, and the fact that we were able to start our recruitment early, I think helped. It got the idea in people's heads to volunteer and to participate. I know especially in Portchester and Ryeneck, we got a lot more youth involvement than we have in previous years. So I owe a decent chunk of our success to getting, a larger number of families, and I think in Rhinebeck it was a scouting group that got involved. And then, as I went over, Rybrook had to cancel, and we didn't have too many teenagers participate. The high schools did not send as many people as we normally get, but we still got a very large number of volunteers. So thank you again to everybody for helping. We're going to seek to continue our growth into the fall and next spring, hopefully. Fall is usually cooler, so it's not as many people, but I hope that we'll still see a lot of success in cleaning up our town. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian. To what do you attribute the lack of the teenagers? I mean, they get community credit for this.
They do, yeah.
So,
I don't know. We had 3 show up in Portchester who I've sent out forms for, and according to Ms. Stora in the city of Rye, they had some volunteers too, but it wasn't as many,
we had some in Crawford Park, actually,
Oh, you did?
we had 2 teenagers from the city of Rye.
Oh, great.
At Crawford Park.
Okay, I didn't know about that. That's
Yeah.
great. But,
I was gonna say, was there any sports going on at the high schools?
there were, yeah,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
So
there
then
were,
there's your reason.
Yeah, I know there was baseball and stuff going on at the park. We had one volunteer who actually left to go play a game, and a family who left their son at a game to come and join us in Portchester, so,
It was, the school was hosting the NISMA Strings Festival, so the majority of kids who typically would come out to our events were volunteering at the school. But they did give it 2 pushes.
How far in advance, Pam, are you aware that the school event is planned?
The NISMA event,
Is
honestly,
it like a year ahead, 6 months ahead, 2 weeks ahead?
don't know. I mean, my
Because-
son told me the morning of, so.
No, the question I'm asking is that what we need to do for next year and in the fall? Coordinate and make sure that we pick a weekend, if possible, where there are no conflicting events that the schools are carrying out.
Yes.
Because, I'm sure my way of thinking is one of the greatest ways to earn community credit is come out on a nice day to the park.
Exactly.
Than as opposed to some of the other ways they could earn it.
Yeah, and for the fall in particular, we've typically held our cleanup days a little later into the fall, so I think we're gonna have to move it earlier this year, but that'll obviously lead to conflicts with other groups' events, because everybody's competing for only so many comfortable weekends at the start of the school year.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we can work it out.
You did reach out to the other communities, and you basically earmarked weekends.
Yes.
Where we're going to try to work around annually.
Yep.
All right.
So we'll be in touch with everybody.
Always a work in progress.
Yep. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Brian.
thank you, Brian.
Very much appreciated. David, welcome.
Thank you. Hi. How's everybody doing?
Good. We had a marvelous presentation.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I mentioned you though, and I said that you would most likely could not attend at the time, and that you would most likely view it on the instant replay.
Oh, absolutely.
It was an excellent presentation, and it's not, as I stated, it's not the end, but the beginning of what we're going to do.
I wholeheartedly believe that, and I've skimmed over parts of it, and I'll pass my questions on to the folks at Heritage, because,
Do you want to talk from the podium?
oh, sure. After announcements?
Yeah, go ahead.
Of course, and then I'll get out of everybody's way. Dave Thomas, Portchester, New York. So,
President of the Friends of the
President of Friends
African
of
American
the
Center.
African American Cemetery, thank you. I want to thank the board, the council, Debbie, the staff at the town of Rye, Vic, and everyone for their efforts in getting this done. I've told many people that this has been a dream of mine since I became involved with this. And right now, I see a lot of research that needs to be done. I have some preliminary plans in my head for some educational programs, some archaeology at the site, and the ability to actually create a new learning space, because there's a lot of interest in this. And actually, hopefully I'll be presenting in Philadelphia in October to the slave dwelling conference there on the cemetery. And there's a few other people that are looking for input. So, and a lot of other cemeteries, African-American cemeteries, has reached out to me. And they say, you know, what is the success? How did you do this? And I always say it has to be a partnership. It's a partnership between those who own the cemetery, volunteers like myself, and the community. So I cannot express enough my thanks to you, to the council, to the people of the town of Rye for restoring and helping to restore this vital historic cemetery. Okay, and then I'll get out of here. I apologize for being late.
David, thank you. You're always welcome. We enjoy working with you. You know, you're a terrific partner, and we love what we're doing moving forward. By looking into our history, we are in turn creating new history. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you. All right, comments from the public on non-agenda items? Anybody wish to speak? Do we have anything on Facebook, Debbie?
Nothing on Facebook.
Okay. Our first resolution tonight is setting the date for a public hearing for local law number 1 of the year 2024, which in fact amends local law number 2 of 2023. This local law involves the creation of additional deputy clerks. It was passed last year, and the fact that we pass a local law somehow is never the end of the story, because it has to pass muster with Westchester County Human Resources, and they suggested that the local law contain a certain phrase that was not in the local law, which I'll read very simply. 2 sentences. The deputies of the principal executive officers are authorized by law to act generally for and in place of their principals. Deputy town clerks will act generally for and in place of the town clerk on all matters. And that's the big change. So, motion to set the public hearing for May 16th, 2024 at our next regular meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Number 2 is a resolution setting the date for local law number 2 to establish an additional deputy clerk position, deputy receiver position in the town of Rye. It is the feeling of the council that a second position be created, a highly responsible position to aid the current receiver of taxes. I think it's fairly, not public, but Mr. Mecca has been considering retiring, and I think that the position of deputy clerk is necessary. An additional deputy receiver is necessary to train so that the staff is able to perform the duties of the office when and if Mr. Mecca should retire. As far as I know, he's not retiring imminently, but has mentioned it. So we want to be prepared to go forward should that be the event. Any comment? So, motion and a second to set the public hearing also for May 16th at our next regular meeting.
So moved.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. None opposed. And the third measure is, and I know this will be somewhat controversial, is to set the date for a public hearing for local law number 3, which is to change the position of receiver of taxes from an elected to an appointed office. The position of receiver is a very difficult position, and it has been filled ably for many years. I'll go over brief history. I don't have to go back more than 40 years or so. Mr. Jackson was a receiver, and his very, very competent deputy receiver was Hope Vespia, who then became the receiver of taxes and had served admirably until she became clerk. When she was receiver of taxes, her deputy was Nick Mecca, who then succeeded to the position of receiver of taxes when Hope became our clerk. And so we've had many, many years of experienced, competent clerks and receivers of taxes, and the town has been blessed. But I think that this is a position that may be better served by an appointive office. We do not have any long-serving deputy receivers at the present time. And as I said, it's a very complicated job. It's not just collecting and dispersing taxes. And ultimately, if this local law is passed, this will be subject to a mandatory referendum, possibly this November, where everybody will obviously have a chance to weigh in at the public hearing. And of course, we'll have an opportunity to vote at the mandatory referendum. So I've said what I've said as an introduction. Anybody want to comment on that?
I just would like to mention that Carol Truant's
I was,
right?
yeah, I was going to get to that. I didn't know how to quite
She was
handle
my
it.
deputy also.
Carol Truant's served as Hope's deputy and as Nick's deputy for many, many years. 36 years.
36 years.
And it would have been logical for Carol to succeed to the position of receiver should Nick retire. However, unfortunately, Carol passed away a year or so ago. About a year now, isn't it?
It's over a year.
Over a year now. And so it would be remiss, I think, to not plan a succession. And whenever that may happen, and I look forward to Nick continuing for a long period of time, as long as he wishes to continue. And but we need to plan for the future, and I think this is the proper way to do it. I am aware that my predecessor and predecessor board had such a local law passed and sent to referendum in 2014, which referendum did not succeed. But I think that that is for now, I think this is the proper course to follow, and the people will ultimately have the final say as to whether or not it transpires. So I'd like to have, this is a motion to set the public hearing on the resolution, on the local law. May I have a motion and a second to set the public hearing for, again, May 16th at our next regular scheduled meeting.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, none opposed. Thank you. Our next resolution is approving a change order related to the renovation of the field at Crawford Park. Hope, would you, when you get a chance, modify the title of the resolution? It's not, the baseball field is not being renovated. That's the subject of the change order, related to the renovation of the fields located at Crawford Park, okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So, basically, this change order involves the, well, let me go back. We received a grant from Senator Shelley Mayer to renovate the fields that are mostly used for soccer, football, and lacrosse, and were in, let's say, not very good condition. It's the same field that existed, as far as I know, since Mrs. Crawford donated by her will Crawford Mansion and Park to the town of Rye. It was not in very good condition. It, in some places, was dangerous. And with this grant, we went to bid, and the bid was almost $298,000. And there were no plans at the time to do anything with the baseball field. Upon reviewing it, I must say, it's in the back of my mind, it was always, the baseball field was always not in great shape, even though we did some work on it a couple of years ago. So I asked Vic to ask the contractor what it might cost to move the ball field. And the reason for moving the ball field is it would have provided more space for the soccer and soccer, football, lacrosse field, and at any rate, the backstop needed replacing. So that's where the change order came into being, and in the amount to not exceed $32,900, which includes the replacement with a brand new backstop. Do we have the drone? I asked Patrick, wave your hand, Patrick, to run a drone over the field. It's in the middle of construction, so I want to. Can you stop it there? Oh.
Sorry. You want me to pull it back?
You can stop it there, Debbie. So if you can see where the field is located, that light spot, which Clay needed replenishment anyway. The idea is to move the field back, if you look at towards the mansion, which would provide a much larger, right where that arrow is going, which would provide a much larger football, soccer field to play on. And I think
also open the softball field to adult play versus just Pee-wee, correct?
well, they do play. Adults play on it now, and but they have to use a special ball because we don't want it to hit the house in left field. So that's what the plan is.
So it's gonna be like in the corner, you're gonna angle in the corner so it can go out further.
Right, so instead of here, the
Yeah.
baseball diamond,
Your
I assume
diamond's
would be
right
right
there.
about
Yeah.
here.
Okay, so you're gonna make it's gonna make the outfield.
Yeah, in other words, where the field now
Yeah.
would be outfield for more outfield for baseball, and also allow the soccer players to play their games not on the baseball field for the most part.
Yeah.
Which you can understand the difference in level while somebody's running across, that is not
Yeah, one of the problems with the field where it joins, where the soccer field, I'll call it the soccer field, joins the baseball field is that there's a lip. And kids or adults going out for a pop-up over shortstop have to go over a lip, and it's dangerous. So that's one of the reasons, and other safety reasons, to do the work. I think it'll be much more functional for for all play.
Also, when they do the backstop, are they gonna have a field box there so they can store stuff like the bases and balls and stuff like that, or is that something that's gonna be kept in the mansion and they grab it from the mansion?
Well, we don't store it now, as far as I know. Each,
Well, years ago they used to. Years ago, they used to have a box there.
A lot of those New York City parks have these boxes that you can rent. That's actually not a bad idea if you wanted to make it a
well, we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are different teams that play there, so who would have access to the box and that's an operational question that we could go, but that's a good idea, Tom.
Okay.
All right. Any questions?
No.
No?
I'm good.
Any comment from the audience? Rick?
Since generally I come here with questions, this one is a comment. I was here at a meeting, I think it was 2017, when this building was going to be renovated or was in the beginning. And at the time, my position amongst the others I've had over the years was chair of the Rybrook Rec Commission. And I tried to kind of gently push the council to do something about the fields, because there is a dearth, even now more, with what's gone on at Blindbrook schools. So I'm really glad to see this, and I congratulate the council on going ahead, moving ahead. This will be a really nice addition to the community, so thank you for that.
And getting a grant for $200,000 towards it?
Don't hurt.
It doesn't hurt. Thank you. Did we have a motion and a second? Motion and a second, please.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman,
Yes.
as modified.
Okay. The next resolution is appointing Gordon Casement as Deputy Assessor. This has been a measure that has been discussed for a period of time. Gordon is currently we call him a senior appraiser. It's not really, he does an excellent job. And Gordon actually interviewed for the position of assessor when Denise left. And we felt that he's a well-qualified person, and he deserves the appointment as deputy assessor for professional advancement, and because it's simply warranted. Was it last month? I'm not sure if it was last month or the month before, we got the position approved. We had a resolution authorizing creation of the position, and just this past week, we got word from the County Human Resources Department that the position was approved. Tell me if I'm saying something incorrect, Debbie. And now tonight's resolution appoints Gordon as the deputy assessor. So,
The only question I have, is that's his salary on there now, as of now?
Correct.
that's why it says initially.
Okay. And then we would, okay.
Yeah,
And we
in other words,
discussed that.
annually, as may be further adjusted by the council,
Okay.
which would be done in our budget session.
Yes, okay.
Okay?
Yes.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Hope, call the roll, please.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi,
Yes.
and Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Our next resolution is to retain Dan Tartaglia as special counsel. Dan is already special counsel in tax cert matters and other litigation matters as it was approved in our reorganization resolution. But from time to time, we need legal counsel for certain other legal matters, especially including real estate. For example, Dan drew the lease for the Barley Beach House for us, and we have other matters that may come from time to time, and Dan is an expert in real estate matters, and so we felt it appropriate to retain him separately for that purpose. And the rate is $280 an hour, which is his current rate for all other matters, which, if anybody knows what legal rates are today, is very reasonable. Any questions, comments? May I have a motion and a second, please?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Hope, please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yeah.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Resolution regarding Bellows Broad LLC, 146-148 Irving Avenue, which is a tax cert resolution. Jeffrey, you want to talk about this? I know it's not a large one.
No, this is a small one. This is a property in Portchester, in the Portchester School District. They've been apprised of it. It involves 1 year at issue. And the village exposure is about $500, and the school district exposure is $1,000. That's based on the settlement.
Right.
So it's a very small matter, and I've informed both of them.
Thank you. Any questions? May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod?
Yes.
Councilperson Nardi?
Yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. Next resolution is approving a donation of $1,500 to the American Legion Post 93 in Portchester towards the 2024 Memorial Day ceremonies and parade. This is something that's in our budget every year, and I believe this is just a formality.
I'll make the motion.
I knew you would.
That's right. For our vets, yes.
Thank you.
Right.
Please call the roll.
Councilperson Jaffe?
Yes.
Councilperson Axelrod? Council,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
that's okay. Councilperson Nardi?
Definitely yes.
And Supervisor Zuckerman.
Yes. This one, Hope, you're going to talk about this one. This is a resolution approving standard workday and record of activity for Judge Castanedis.
Okay, the New York State and local retirement system requires that anyone who wants to be in the pension system has to provide it's an ROA, it's a records of activity. And then we have to pass a resolution, adopt a resolution, and post it for 30 days in order for it to be eligible for this, and this is what we're doing. Judge Castaneda provided his ROA, and this is the resolution for it that I will submit to the New York State retirement system.
Thank you, Hope.
You're welcome.
May I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
None opposed. Okay. Before we get to the reports, I see two lovely young women come in. Did you want to speak on any item?
No, we're not, she'll speak with somebody
Yeah.
else about that. You can tell her, you can tell them later.
Oh, I'm a junior at Rye High School, and right when I read the article on News 12 about the uncovering of the unmarked burial grounds of African Americans, I immediately jumped in the car to come to the meeting. I dragged her with me, she drove me here, and I knew I had to come and see this. to talk to someone just about helping with research any way I can, because I'm a student advisory council member of the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, and we focus primarily on African American studies, so
Great.
was really
I wish you had
interested in this.
spoken at the podium.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Start again with your name.
Hi, I'm Charlotte Lorraine. I'm a junior at Rye High School, and I just read the News 12 article, and I immediately ran here because I knew I had to be at this meeting to learn about all of this, about the uncovering of the burial grounds of the African Americans, because I'm a student advisory council member for the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History, and we primarily focus on African American studies, and this is something I'm very interested in, and I was hoping to help research, or do anything I can for this.
So I just want you to know, the presentation was earlier this evening, and at the end of it, I said, anybody who's watching this broadcast and who wants to help, feel free, okay? And it didn't even take 20 minutes, and here you are.
I saw the article and I was like, oh no, I think it was 6 o'clock, and I was like, Mom, get in the car right now, we have to go. So, yeah.
No, that's great, and we'll put you in touch both with with David, what's his last name?
Dave Thomas.
No, beside David Leslie, who headed the research, and David Thomas, who's president of the Friends of the African American Cemetery. And this presentation, as I stated, was just the beginning, hopefully, of the work that we're going to do. And your help, and any other students who wish to help, or any adults who wish to help, we welcome you all. And thank you for.
Watch back the video of the
perfect.
meeting, and the entire presentation will be there. And then if you just kind of hang in there, Dave Thomas was able to come. He just came a little bit afterwards to talk about, some of the continuing work that he's doing.
And it will be on News 12.
Okay.
The blurb, they photographed so it should be on the news. And you can see our meeting. When will our meeting be available? I know it's live now, but if she wanted to see this meeting, when would she be able to watch it back?
Immediately. Yeah.
Right on Facebook.
Facebook,
Okay.
YouTube, yeah.
Facebook
All right.
and YouTube.
Great,
Instantly available as soon as it's done.
Okay,
all right.
See, that Ricky's on the wall.
right?
So Roman number 2.
I didn't realize it had so much power.
Thank you for jumping
Yeah.
I'm so
That was great.
She's lovely, yeah.
Here's me? Okay. Perfect.
Thank
you.
so she'll get in touch with people you just mentioned.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And stay in touch with the town. Everything can be done through the town, through Debbie. And,
Yeah.
all right.
Well, it sounded very much like we're going to start working on something called a preservation and planning document. I'm looking forward to learning what that is. But that's our next step, so consider yourself involved.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much. Reports, our assessor is ill tonight. I don't know if he's appearing on Zoom or not. I don't know that he has a report.
No, he said nothing to
No,
report.
okay. Let me skip to Nick. If you're on, do you have any report you'd like to, any comments you'd like to make?
He's got us submitted.
He's muted right now.
He's there.
He's there?
He submitted his monthly report.
Right.
Nick, you can unmute yourself if you're there.
Hello?
Oh, here he
There
comes.
he is.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the Town Council. Nicholas Mecca, receiving of taxes. Just 2 points. Number one, if you are responsible to pay your taxes, you have to do it soon because they're due the end of April. If you are responsible and have not gotten a bill, please make sure you call the office because we hate to hear after the month, I never got my bill. the return mail this time around was like nil. So we can only assume that 99% of the people that are responsible got their bills. So if you didn't, let us look into it and see. And another point is the post office warns us there's a new gimmick out there. Would-be thieves putting glue in the boxes. So when you put the mail in, it doesn't drop. The glue catches it. When people go away, they take it back out. So please stay away from those boxes. If you really can't use the computer, which is the best way to do it, or come to our office, or come to the front of the building in our secure box, give it to your mail person carrier. Don't put it in the box on the street or the post office. Get into the post office itself. So please be very careful, because it seems that there are very underhanded people working out there coming up with themes to get these checks robbed, changed, and cashed. So far, we're lucky and received none, but be careful. Okay? Thank you. Any
Nick,
questions for me?
Yeah, Nick. Just to reiterate the methods that people can pay their tax bills, because the least satisfactory method is using the mail, because it takes however many days. And the other methods are instantaneous. So would you just tell the public what they are, how they can pay their taxes if they're
Yes,
not
they
in the
can-
mortgage?
they can- As I said, they can come to our office, or they can put it in our box out front there. It's got a sign right on it, says deposit your tax payment here. There's 24-hour surveillance on that, so it's safe as a bug in a rug. But the best thing to do is pay it online, because now July is going to be a 72-cent stamp. And your online is $1.50, regardless of the amount of the check. You can send a check, like people from Rhinebeck that have real huge bills. They send in $30,000 check, and it costs $1.50. And it goes immediately from their account into ours, and you immediately get a receipt. So it's the perfect way to pay your taxes. So if you need any help going online, we're in the office, always available to answer your questions or walk you through it for the first time and set you up so that you have no problems. Please take care of this situation. It's a very important thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Much appreciated. Before I get to Vic, finances, Davey on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, Dave.
Hi, Gary. I submitted my report, which is the receivables report, through March 31st. Overall receivables are down from the prior year about 80,000. That also includes when the March report reflects the school receivables that we make whole at the end of April. That's 190,000 less than the prior year, so we're continuing to have taxpayers make their payments and so keeping our receivables low. So that make whole will be made to the school districts. Right now it's $1,461,000 by April 30th, and they've been notified, and that's it at this point.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Much appreciated. So receivables low is a good thing, right?
Receivables low is a great thing.
Good.
For
Just want to
fund
make that
balance
clear.
And for our reserves that we can have invested, through the TD Bank in New York Class and earn interest income. Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. And you got through tax season okay?
What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Okay. All right. I'll just, Town Clerk, your report is submitted. Okay, now, Victor Candy's going to give a report. Crawford Park.
Hi, good evening. My name is Candida Mejia. I am a park attendant here at Crawford Park, and I will be reporting our events that we have here at Crawford throughout the first quarter, January, February, and March. For private events that we've had for the last 3 months, for residents is 7, non-residents is 17. Municipalities are either the Cub Scouts, the teachers, Board of Elections, which the residents is the Portchester Schools, the Cub Scouts, which we've had 20 so far. Non-resident was the Board of Elections that we had 1.
For now, we're gonna have more.
Yes, we are. For the public events, these are our winter concerts. We've had 6 so far. And the community programs that Crawford Park and the town of Rye sponsor throughout the 3 months that they've been here. Fiddleheads has been here 7 times. Chess has been here 20. And Dance Works has been here 22. So for the 3 months in total, it's been 100 events together. So last night we had a cooking class with Kara Tenenbaum. And what we did was Facebook, Instagram, Zoom, and in person. What we gathered from Facebook, people that viewed it live, was 84 individuals. On Instagram, that viewed it live was 31, but later on, from last night to today, we had 165 people that viewed the video on Instagram. For Zoom, some people would get on and then get off. So we only had a few, but it was 1. And then in the kitchen that were with Kara, it was 7 individuals that were in the cooking class. We had David from Westmore News with the other additional individuals that were baking cookies for Passover. They had 3 different cookies that they had to make for Passover, which was the almond cookies, chocolate chip, and coconut macaroons. So everybody got to take a little bit of their cookies that they made home with them. They were pretty good.
Before you go on, since we have a participant here, David, would you like to comment on your experience in Crawford cooking class?
You can read all about it.
Spoken like a true reporter. You've trained him well, Richard. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So my next slide has the 3 months of private events with the gross and the municipality events that we've waived. This is for 2024. As you can see, for March, we had a lot of teacher from Portchester trainings, and we also had one of the Board of Election voting sites downstairs in the Great Hall. So that's why it's really high for March for the waived fees. Did you have any questions with this slide? No? Okay.
Nope.
So from last year, I was able to compile the private events and the municipality events that were waived from January, February, and March. We do have the teachers here a lot, so that's why the waived fees are high for January from 2023. Any questions?
Nope.
Okay. The next slide that I have is of the sponsored programs that we have. And the 20% earned revenue that we get is from the enrollment that the teachers have, and we get 20% from that revenue. And then the other is of the staff who works during the classes. Any questions?
I don't understand. If we're waiving the fees, why is there?
These are the sponsored, we're not waiving fees.
Oh,
They give us
we-
20%.
It's the chess class.
Oh, I thought you said when you said teachers, I was thinking Portchester teachers. Okay.
Right, so
Got it.
there are programs that the
I got
town
it.
sponsors
Got it.
here.
Any questions?
Nope.
No? Okay. And my last slide is of upcoming events. And on Sunday, we will have the Westchester Philharmonic here. So if you can make it, we would be glad to have you. But these are the events, and shortly we should have them available for everyone. And that's my
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Candy. Much appreciated.
I'll step right in. Vic Federico, Director of Grounds and Facilities. What I've just handed you, Deb, you had one, do you want one?
I've seen it. Thank you very much.
Okay, Gary had asked me for a list of public events, classes, sports, camps. I believe he is going to go to the Crawford family with this to show them where we're at here at Crawford. If you notice in public events, from the first of the year, there are 30 public events, including everything from free haircuts to music. We have a car show coming up, fundraisers, art shows, Big Brothers and Sisters. We have a cross-country event coming up, Ronald McDonald House, and of course our holiday lights. We have 7 reoccurring classes that go on throughout the year, both in the spring. Summer it slows down, but summer has camps. And in the fall and winter, they reoccur. We have 4 total sports events that go on consistently throughout the year. Okay.
Vic, let me
Yes.
just ask you one thing. What is the progress on the cross-country?
Okay, I was told to contact her at the end of May. She's got everybody on board.
Who's her?
The Blind Brook, Kimberly, I don't know where, Blind Brook.
So Blind
Athletic
Brook
Director.
Recreational Director.
Yeah, the athletic director.
Thank you.
She told me to contact her at the end of May. She's busy now with spring sports, and it's all set up. So we're
All right, now who's participating so far?
Blind Brook, Portchester, the city of Rye, and Rye-Neck.
Okay. That's good.
Yes.
This is just, this is a I guess a cross-country invitational
Yes.
involving the 4 schools that will be using probably Crawford Park, and I'm guessing also Rye Hills Park as a
Yes,
course?
Yes, I have to meet with the cross-country coach in May, and we will map out the course.
Okay, good.
Okay.
This is very exciting.
Yes, everything's very
Yeah,
exciting.
I mean, I love the idea of all the schools coming together here and
Yes.
having an event.
Okay. Brian had covered the.
He's right here.
Brian had covered the community cleanup last week, which went real well, and I want to thank him. Coming up this weekend, we have the Westchester Philharmonic on Sunday at 2 p.m., the string quartet. Next Friday, we are doing an Arbor Day dedication honoring the life and work of Ashley Weldy, starting at the greenhouse at the Ridge Street School at 3:40, continuing to Crawford Park, naming the mini forest after her at 4:15, next to Rye Hills Park for 5 o'clock, and then the reception in Crawford Mansion at 5:30. Sunday next week is Coffee and Cars Car Show, which will be at 10 a.m.
That's Tommy's baby.
That's Tommy's baby, that's right. And if you notice the banner out front, before you come in, weather permitting, it'll be, I think, a very crowded event.
Is it at 9 or 10?
10.
10, okay.
9 to 12?
Yeah.
Okay, well, all right, 9 to 12.
Good.
Now, that just means I have to be here even earlier.
Sorry.
That's okay. All right, as you saw, the field work is moving along. They're actually adding a lot of soil right now. We had the irrigation people here just the other day, starting to map out where the irrigation is going to be going. Weather permitting this upcoming week. Hopefully, keep our fingers crossed it's a dry one, because that's slowing up progress right now is all this rain. The good thing is you boated through the ball field. Tomorrow they wouldn't be able to do anything on these sod areas, but we'll be able to rip down the old backstop and start to dig out the clay. So at least they'll be able to.
So that was
be
even
productive.
planned before we approved the
Yes.
resolution?
Yes, it
Oh,
was.
I see.
I gotta be a step ahead, Gary, you know, it's,
I count on it.
in the April 4th storm we had with all that wind and everything, and I'll tell you a little funny story right after it. We lost 5 very mature trees. The day before we did that, Gary and I were doing a survey out in the park, out in the playground, and we're talking about adding to the playground, you know, to make it for, basically our playground is for young kids. It's from basically 5 to 8 years old. We want to move it to, at least to the 12-year-olds, so kids will hang around longer. I mentioned to him that the only way we could do this is we'd have to lose a couple of the willow trees. Well, the storm came, we lost a couple of the willow trees.
Cool, making lemonade. And I had asked Vic, you know, it's an interesting story, because I went with my my grandchildren. My son brought my grandchildren over, and they went to Pine Ridge Park, and they were playing on the equipment up there. I was looking at the equipment, I said, you know, some of this equipment would also be very good at Crawford. So I had Vic take a look at it, and then the idea started to germinate, and lo and behold, the trees fell.
Lastly, do you all know what Arborscope is? Arborscope is our survey of all the trees we have on the property. It tells you the condition of the tree, the name of the tree, the biological name of the tree. We are having it updated this coming summer, and all the trees will be re-tagged, and the new trees will be tagged. If you go around right now and you try and find a tag on a tree to see which tree it is in Arborscope, you'll have a heck of a time trying to find it, because in the past they put it wherever they felt, 8 feet high, 3 feet high, west side, east side, and squirrels do a job on them. Squirrels love to scratch those metal tags. So the new tags will be squirrel proof. They will be on the north side of the tree, 4 feet high. So everybody will be able to find them.
Good.
And that's all I have.
Thank you, Vic.
Told me it was about 1,300 trees.
Yes.
Vic, I got one quick question for the car show. Is you don't have to register, you just show up, right?
No, I'm pretty sure you have to register.
Register?
Yeah.
All right, I have to
We have the
register.
information if you,
You register your car,
I gotta
as
register.
opposed to register to go there.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
I gotta put my car in.
Okay.
Okay, so I just want everybody to remember that at Rye Town Park, we have our annual community conversation coming up on Saturday, May 18th, So all residents are welcome to come to the park, to the pavilion between 10 and noon and talk to us about Bright Town Park and hear what the commissioners have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. First question is, okay, have I missed anything on this agenda? Usually I miss one thing. We got it all today?
I
Good.
think you got it.
All right. Comments from the council members? Anybody?
Just want to thank Brian once again for ably helming our cleanup day, and I know he's already thinking into October and November. We are starting to think towards Pride. We'll have a commemoration on June 1st at Rye Town Park. Debbie eyeballed me today and said we need to start working on Juneteenth, so that will be coming up with more information soon. But I do want to thank Debbie for working so beautifully hand in hand with the school district and with the village to do the commemoration for Ashley Weldy next week. I've gotten nothing but love and appreciation from people who knew and love Ashley, and I know there are people in this audience who also will be in attendance and are very appreciative of it. So thank you, Debbie, for everything you've done to bring that to life.
It was my pleasure. Ashley was probably the first member of our sustainability committee in 2016. And
I remember that.
yes, and the tiny forest will also be dedicated to our councilman who recently passed away, Anthony Baxter.
Who was the first chair of the Sustainability Committee.
Yes. Right.
All right, if nothing else, I don't have anything except to say thank you to everybody. I think that there are a lot of good things happening and continue to happen. Rick?
Yes.
You're supposed to make these comments when, earlier in the meeting.
I followed directions, Mr. Supervisor. You said are there any comments on non-agenda items? And this is a comment on an agenda item. So when you said non-agenda items, again, I still don't understand what that means and why it's done that way. But
I'll tell you why.
I'm a rule follower.
I'll tell you why. Because non-agenda items refers to anybody who wants to speak about anything. Agenda items means to speak while we have the agenda. That's why I look around to see if somebody may wish to comment on an agenda item.
Well, this is an agenda item.
And what is that?
The agenda item is on the appointing rather than electing the receiver of taxes. My question is, at the public hearing, which has been set, will all the council members, we heard your opinion about why you're moving this forward. I'm not going to get into my opinion because that's what a public hearing is for, not when you said it. So, but I want to know from a process standpoint, because I know Mr. Bender likes to have good processes. Will all the members of the council weigh in, or was the comments that you made regarding that the kumbaya moment of the board? Everybody agrees that what your explanation was. So I'm wondering whether or not.
No, I mean, obviously at the public hearing, the council members will weigh in on what their thoughts were and listen to the members of the public.
Thank you.
I mean, obviously it appeared on the agenda for a reason, and.
Well, it's a legal reason. It's got to be. It's got to be. I mean, you have
well,
to set
I'm
the
saying
public
it's.
hearing.
Saying if somebody objected to the fact that it be on the agenda, they would have said to me, don't put it on the agenda. But at least it's on the agenda. And we will have a public hearing. And that doesn't mean that even if we pass the local law, that it can't be modified in some form from the way it sits now. And it may not be approved.
I understand. I just wanted to see whether that was.
I just felt, Rick, I don't want to belabor the point because I already made it, but my feeling is that It's a very difficult position. And I know that a lot of political people will say, it should remain elected because they want people to run for the office. But my particular point of view for this particular office is that it's complicated and that it needs somebody who has a familiarity with it. And it's one thing to have an elected office where your succession is several very experienced people taking over for other experienced people. The receiver's office deals with approximately $250 million in collections. And it's, as I said earlier, it's not just collecting money and giving it. It's a lot of complicated reports that have to be done, exemptions have to be worked on, and it requires a certain level of skill, which Nick Mecca has, which Hope Vespia had when she was in that position. And the people will speak if they want. I know it's very difficult. I'll say point blank. The public at large does not like to make an elective office an appointive office. They like to have a say, for the most part. And I understand that. I just feel that if we pass this local law, the people will have a say at a referendum, and they will say yes or no. If they say no, they say no. But I believe that it's something that should be discussed.
Hence the generation of my question. I just want to make sure it's going to be discussed.
Absolutely.
In general, and I will
Absolutely.
reserve my comments until the
Sure.
public hearing when that's when you're supposed to make the comments.
Absolutely.
So hopefully,
When I saw the agenda item, the first thing I was like, this is going to have to go to a public vote. I want to hear what the public has to say.
Sure, absolutely.
We know that Nick,
I want to hear what you have to say.
well, we know how much love our community has for Nick, and we know what a great job Nick does. And we don't want to think about the eventuality of having to replace Nick. But I do want to hear, I think this is Tommy's refrain. I'd like people to come to that meeting and talk to us so that we can consider what the public wants as we make a decision to put this on the ballot or not.
I get it.
This is the one time you need to show up to the meeting. Come to the meeting and voice your opinion. You gotta do it.
I do, Tom.
Now, I'm saying it for out there. You know what I mean?
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. The gentleman in the back. Richard?
So, my name is Richard Abel, and I live on Quintar Drive in Portchester. I am a person who really believes in open meetings and transparency, and I've lived most of my life that way. But I have a question on the public hearings that were scheduled for tonight, that you now rescheduled for a future date. I came specifically because, and I will read you the legal notice, that all three of them said the same thing, that I'm sorry, my eyes aren't what they used to be either, that the town of Rye, New York, will hold a public hearing on Thursday, April 18th, 2024 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter. Now, maybe soon thereafter means a month later, I don't know, but I showed up for those three public hearings, and you didn't even recognize that they were advertised for tonight. In other jurisdictions, if something happens, they may open the public hearing and then postpone it or cancel it. So I was just wondering, but the other thing that really bothered me is that the public hearing requires, if you wish to comment, please register to attend the public meeting, the hearing, by emailing the town clerk at, and you will be encouraged to provide your name and whatever. It's a public hearing. There should be no registration.
We've never had
wish that the line goes out the door.
We've never had, I don't know why that's in there.
Well,
To
all
tell you
three
the
of them
truth.
had it.
Well, thank you for pointing it out.
Okay.
We don't need people to register.
Yeah.
It might be to register if they want to appear on Zoom.
Okay,
I'm
that's
not
a
sure.
different issue. But I'm saying,
No.
I just came,
It's
I'd
not a
like to know
problem.
what happened to the 3 public hearings that were
I'll
scheduled.
tell you what happened with the 3 public hearings.
Yes.
We decided to have the public hearings here, and Hope published the notice. It was after the last meeting. The proper procedure would have been at the last meeting to have a resolution that we had at this meeting, setting the public hearing date. Okay, that wasn't done because this occurred afterwards, and it was an error. It was an error on my part that we should have done what we did tonight.
Well, I mean, it's very rare that there's many local laws that are passed in the town of Rye. So I would just say that you
I would
should-
suggest you're not really worried about 2 of them, but mostly of the 3rd one.
Yes, I know which one
Okay.
I want
Right.
to talk about. But I'm just saying is that.
No, it was an
And
error.
I know of other people that wanted to come tonight. And I don't know, maybe somebody told them that they didn't have to because there isn't going to be one. I don't
That may have
know.
been-
But
well,
I wasn't one
you're
of them. Okay,
Well-
so I just think, that,
Well, Richard, you could always call me or the clerk or Debbie.
well, how would I know that it was,
A lot
that
of
it
people
wasn't
call-
going to happen?
A lot of people call up and confirm.
But that's not the way it should be.
No, it isn't.
Okay?
It's
So
not-
I'm just saying is that.
Richard, it's not a problem.
Okay.
I will take responsibility for making the error and not, I didn't know about it, obviously, at the last meeting to set a resolution. Every time we've had a local law, we've had a meeting where we have a resolution setting the public hearing at the next one, which we did not do last time because the public hearing, the decision to have a public hearing occurred after the last meeting. So now we've rectified it.
So the decision to have public hearing was made not in public? In other words, to pass this local law, to have a public hearing on the local law, you did not make it at a public meeting.
Well, we did now.
That's not my point. Tonight was supposed to be the public hearing, and you made a decision to have this public hearing not in public. So it's called being transparent, okay? Being open, okay. So you made a mistake. So I'm glad you're owning up to it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Motion to adjourn.
I make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.